everybody. You are not going to want to miss this episode of the Lifetime Training Podcast. My name is Jason Stella, and I'm your host. And today I'm grateful to bring you Jonathan Goodman. He is the founder of the Personal Training Development Center, the Online Training Academy certification. And he's authored 11 books and lived in 10 countries. You can listen to him host his hilarious and educational online trainer show on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube. And really, what I love most about John, watching him grow is just, he's a true family man, world traveler, and really took it upon himself to say, I know this industry, I can make money in this industry, but I got to change how to do that. So welcome, John. And I can't tell you how grateful I am to have you on the show.
One of my favorite experiences was giving a talk at a symposium at my alma mater, University of Western Ontario. This was like years after I graduated. They put on an exercise nutrition symposium that I was invited back to speak at. And actually I had already spoken for the day, and Dr. John Brody, who went to the same university as me, for anybody who knows him from Precision Nutrition, was speaking. And a student put up their hand to ask him a question. And she said, hey, I'm in my final year of studying kinesiology. Seeing as how there's no way to make a good income in the fitness industry, what do you suggest I do with my degree? And he just, if you know JB, you can immediately know that he's poised, right? He's very respectful of everybody. And he says, well, John, and he points to me, and I'm with his daughter in the back of the room, and he goes, John Goodman, you're doing all right, aren't you, in the fitness industry? Like, yeah. He's like, I'm doing all right. He's like, so I guess it's possible.
Oh, that's great.
It was funny. It was so funny. It was just the way, but I mean, it tells a story, right? That it is hard if you follow the conventional path and do what you're told you should do in the fitness industry, because the fitness industry is still very young. I mean, it's only 20, maybe 30 years old. Yep. And so it just hasn't had time. It's like that really awkward adolescent right now of just everybody's like showing off and puffing their feathers, and nobody really knows what they're doing, and nobody is really confident, and they're all trying to like figure out how to grow up. Yeah. And some teenagers figure it out quicker than others. And what I think is missing is just the amount of different options and paths that are available. I mean, a lot of people start in the industry as trainers. Most people do. Yeah. Very few end up as trainers at the end of the day. And how do you make that step, right? How do you make that transition if it's right for you? And I think we'll talk about this later on based off of the questions you sent, but what are the personality traits that makes a successful trainer? And like, that is, if you understand that, it is why it is so unbelievably difficult to make it work. Cause like very few humans possess all of those traits. I don't. So it's hard, right? So well, and take that how you will.
And it's evolved. I would say, I got certified for the first time in '96 when NASM was based out of Chicago, slightly different group. Mm-hmm. And, when I was going to school, none of the schools were personal training. No, if you went exercise phys, it was, you wanted to get into the labs, you wanted to get into cardiac rehab and all of those things. And they actually frowned upon it because of the way the industry was. And I would say we were all bodybuilders back then. And then it kind of converted into corrective exercise. And then we started doing nutrition, and now we're doing behavior. And, it's just, like you said, it's so evolving, and we don't know which way to go.
I mean, I'm younger than you. I graduated university in 2007, and I trained at the university gym for 3 years. So I graduated university with a 4-year degree in kinesiology, and had already been personal training 3 years at the university gym. So I had, a good head start. But what was interesting is, when I got my personal training certification, I'm from Canada, so it's called CanFit Pro here. Yeah. I literally didn't know how to stretch the back. No, I didn't even know it was lats. The instructor, I remember in my practical, asked me how to stretch the back, and I didn't know. And I still passed.
Yeah. Man, I tell you, back when NESM, it was, I remember Tom Purvis. I don't know if you're familiar with Tom Purvis or not.
I know of him. I've never met him.
These guys absolutely scared the piss out of me. And it was, it was terrible. And then another one I went through.
RTS? Was Tom RTS?
Yeah, he's RTS before.
Okay.
Resistance training specialist. Yeah.
Cool.
heavy biomechanics. So, why don't we kick it off too? And you started the PTDC, the Personal Training Development Center, and, it was a Facebook page. And, would you mind just, how did you come up with that? What was, what were you thinking there? And then obviously that has bloomed into everything that you're doing now.
Yeah, let me tell you about my grand plan and how I figured this out at the beginning and have just been executing now. It's not how it happened.
It was all structured. You knew it. But,
I knew exactly what I was doing from day one, and I just had this vision, let me tell you. And if you want, you can buy my vision. It's just 8 simple steps if you want to sign up for my
newsletter. Instagram commercial.
Yeah, right. But it's funny, that idea of, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was so ignorant. I started a blog without knowing what the word blog meant. Back in, when was it? 2011. It started actually with a book. I was a 23-year-old personal trainer. Like I said, I came into it with a lot of experience. I got certified just 2 or 3 weeks after my 18th birthday.
Oh, wow.
And started training at the university gym that year. And so, I was young going through it. And by the time I was 23 years old, I reached like the top of the industry in Toronto that you can kind of reach. I was charging as much as you could charge at that point, $97 an hour in Toronto, 35 to 40 hours of training a week. So couldn't really train anymore. I was referring my overloaded clients to other trainers, getting a commission from that. And I was the senior trainer at the club. So I was earning a salary from doing some of the hiring and onboarding and doing some even in-service trainings when I was 23. And it kind of came to a head. I was playing ice hockey at night, which it's funny because you're in Arizona. So like ice hockey is kind of a joke, but I'm also in Toronto and Austin Matthews is from Arizona, which makes no sense that like the best player for the Toronto Maple Leafs is from Arizona. Well, it's popular though because of Austin Matthews, really, right? Who's good, even though the Leafs are a terrible team and everybody who likes them is self-loathing. And so, I was playing ice hockey at night and I got tripped by some goon and pulled a hamstring and was off my feet for 2 weeks. Like, not that big of a deal if you are in any job other than a personal trainer. Yeah. And couldn't make money for 2 weeks. And that was when it hit me. That was kind of the catalytic point, which is like, man, things are fine now. I'm good, but this is not how my life can be like. I can't be in a business that is this brittle. There's no robustness. I didn't use this terminology, but like, there's no robustness. There's no resilience in this business model. Like I'm going to want a family. I'm going to want to travel. Like, yeah, sure. 21, 22, 23. Like, I'm good. I'm single. I got no expenses. Like, I'm fine. Yeah. But what's going to happen when I'm, 30 and 35 and, now I have a 3-year-old. And so how is that going to work? Right? I clearly cannot depend on this. I don't know what's going to happen. I certainly didn't know a pandemic was going to happen that was going to shut down everything. But I was like, if a goon tripping me and knocking me off my feet for 2 weeks means I don't make money for 2 weeks, like, I got to find something else. So I just went on a search, really. And I didn't know what it was going to be. It was, I started researching everything, multiple streams of income, passive. And like, at that point, this was like 2008, 2009. At that point, you had to seek out this information. It was there, but I went to the library and checked out books on marketing on multiple streams of income. There were not advertisements in your face to sign up for a 15-minute discovery call to get pitched on a $5,000 program. Like, you had to seek this stuff out at that time, right? And so, I built two business plans for a smoothie operation. I studied residential real estate investing for 6 months. I was just looking for anything. Yeah. And eventually I came across this book. It was called Multiple Streams of Income by somebody named Robert G. Allen. And in that book, one of the chapters was on a concept called infopreneuring. Basically, become an information entrepreneur, sell your information, sell what you know. Right now, it's like, yeah, of course you could sell information. But back then, it wasn't. When I started doing work online, I had all the checks that I was making sent to my parents' house so that they believed me that I was making money. That's
we're like going, holy cow.
like no adult was proud of their son or daughter for being an entrepreneur back in like 2009. It was like, no, they're just unemployed. Like, that was not, it was a totally different atmosphere. And so anyway, in this book, it basically had this like diagram of the universe. And in the center of the universe, it said, write a book. And all around the universe, it had all the streams of income that you could make. And it all starts with a book. Like that's why it was in the center. And the advice was, write a book about something you know about. I was like, I know about personal training. So I wrote a book for personal trainers called Ignite the Fire. Because I knew so little about, like, how did I find my editor for the book? I literally went to the bookstore. I wrote down the names of every author of every fitness book in the bookstore. And I went home and I Googled them and emailed them and asked them for their editor.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just, I was so blissfully ignorant, optimistically ignorant around the whole process that, you know, I if I knew how hard it was going to be, I certainly wouldn't have done it. But it kind of one step turned into the next. And then to promote the book, I needed to figure out a way to let people know about it. And so I started a website where I published pieces from the book, articles, what I was thinking about personal training. And I called it the Personal Trainer Development Center. And then I was like, well, there's actually a lot of other smart people who are writing stuff kind of for personal trainers, but none of them are in one central location. You know, they're either blogging for maybe their certification agency or their gym or their personal website. There's no website that's kind of like the Switzerland, right? That kind of just brings everybody and all the information together. And so Personal Trainer Development Center became that website. And now, you know, we'll reach 3 to 5 million people a year. We've got over 1,000 articles.
That's fantastic.
And it's kind of just grown from there.
Yep. That's awesome. And so, you know, a question I'd love, you know, obviously you've influenced and you've been around these people and engage, you know, constantly with them and your team. And, you know, what do you feel is really broken in the industry? And, you know, given the times that we're in now, what have you learned from them of what do trainers really want? You know, like I always say, is it just money? I don't know if it's just money. I think it's important.
It's not money. I mean, a baseline of money, fine. The stability is huge. But really, I mean, we use the term freedom, but to be honest, there are different questions, right? What do trainers want? What do trainers really need? I think they get conflated. I think they are very similar, but I think they're different. But I would start with what trainers need. And what I would love to talk about is like why personal training is so unbelievably difficult and not actually right for most people who do it. Because if you think about what personality traits, natural and learned attributes a personal trainer really needs to be successful, it basically doesn't exist in a human being. I mean, you've got to be in probably pretty desirable shape. I mean, there's a lot of conflict, but like very few people would argue that it is easier to be successful as a personal trainer if you're in good shape than it is if you're not. Right? Not to say that you couldn't make it work otherwise, but it's certainly easier. You've got to be energetic, empathetic, hardworking. You've got to be good at sales. You've got to be entrepreneurial. Like that. And you've got to be a bit of a science geek.
Yeah, and you got to have the technical aspect. I always say the business building in college and the science building in college, usually you're not seeing people go to both of those.
It just doesn't. I mean, you've got to be. I mean, I'm pretty introverted, which surprises a lot of people. But like the idea that introverts can't speak to people is inherently wrong. You know, an introvert, the easiest way to describe it is like an introvert starts the day with 5 coins, and every interaction he or she has, they give away a coin to somebody else. And when they're out of coins, they need to be by themselves and recover. An extrovert gains a coin with every interaction that they have. And so as a personal trainer, if you want to work a lot of sessions, I mean, I would do 10, 11, 12 sessions in a row. And I mean, I was destroyed at the end of that, right? An extrovert gets filled up by that. So, but think about that combination of skills and attributes. It's very rare that it happens, yet most gyms, and this is the reason why it's very hard also for gyms and gym owners and companies like Lifetime to really grow a personal training department, is because it is very, very difficult to find good personal trainers who stay within your company. Like somebody who does really well is probably going to be entrepreneurial, which means at a certain point you can't even pay them anymore. It kind of is not even about that. You know, it's about having your own thing. It's about, and so what I think a lot of facilities need to do, and what excites me so much about online training and some of the opportunities that it's going to do, is how much it will actually allow people to do what they should be doing and eliminate the stuff that they shouldn't.
Yeah.
Like we've got an online training business that we run. So we basically have online trainer coaching that specializes in online fitness coaching for personal trainers, nutrition coaches, and gym owners, because coaches need coaches too.
Yep.
And we've got a program architect, basically like credible guy at the top. We're going to have programmers in the second level, and then we have coaches in the third level.
Yep.
The coaches, actually, they need to know enough about the programming and exercise, but like programming and fitness instruction is very much a mastery profession. It's kind of like no limit hold'em poker. Like it's pretty easy to get the fundamentals, but to be really, really great at it takes an unbelievable amount of time.
Yep.
And so it's actually reasonably easy to find people who know the fundamentals enough that they can instruct it.
Yep.
As long as you hire for the personality traits of energetic, motivational. You look for people who understand motivational interviewing and coaching, right? And then you take care of the business as the company. And then you have people beside them who are just like science geeks who probably shouldn't speak to other humans, who like sit in a room and write programs, right? Like you should not have one human doing all of these things. And what online training allows you to do, or not even online training, but you know, I'm not so much a proponent of online training as much as I'm a proponent of what online and technology will allow people to do in optimizing training environments.
Yep.
The majority of our students, I mean, we've helped over 30,000, 35,000 now, people adopt online training in some capacity, right? In 87 countries around the world. The vast majority of them have actually never worked with anybody outside of their city.
Wow.
And it's just, it's because understanding how to leverage these tools simply allows you to offer a better service, an optimal service, without the constraints of a conventional gym training environment. There really is nothing more to it than that.
Yeah. You know, a couple of things to go back on. I think, you know, one of the things that you didn't say it right out, but the ability to be resourceful and find a way, you know, that is kind of what you explained, I think. And I know I've heard you say that before, is how many people can be resourceful with the tools and with the things that they have. And then how do you become more efficient?
Right.
You know,
and what's that process? That's where I find people like, oh, I need to delegate. The amount of people that come to us, and you know, you're in some of our communities. I'm sure you've seen this question over and over again. We've got this community of like 38,000 online trainers or something. Inevitably, at least once a week, somebody says, hey, how are you people finding your virtual assistants? I tried to hire one and they weren't very good. Where are you finding your people? It's like, you know, the problem is probably not that the virtual assistant that you hired wasn't good. The problem was probably that you did a really bad job actually helping that person grow into that role.
Yeah.
And that's, how do you take that step though? It's like, you can't just like delegate, be like, oh, I'm busy. Oh, take stuff. Yeah. You know, like it's a systematic process of growing, of handing off 5 hours a week, then 10, then 20, then 30, then maybe growing to a second person, and then 4 people, and then 8 people. And then like, it's a process, right? It's like fitness. It's like building up, you know, but everybody's trying to jump ahead.
Yep. So what, you know, I guess what was the tipping point from PTDC to, I'm going to create this online trainer academy? Like what was the thing that sparked that? And then, you know, tell us about, and tell the audience, you know, more about, you know, what that program is and the importance of it.
Yeah, I mean, it came about because I'm really bad at business and did everything backwards. A lot of people will, I mean, I joke, I think I'm better at business now, but I knew so little about how things should be done that I did things the wrong way. And as a result, I'm in a really good position now. Because oftentimes the quote unquote right way is the way that everybody does it. And then it kind of just, the value of that diminishes over time. And so the right way to do things is to have a product or service, and then to build a content platform and a community in order to sell that product or service. Well, I had no product or service. I mean, I had Ignite the Fire, I had the book, but I had no product or service, right? I built a community and I built a content platform. And then I asked them what they wanted. And I listened to them and what they needed. And so I've done multiple bouts. I mean, I'll tell you how Online Trainer Academy came about is I did a bout of 147 14-minute phone calls, 13-minute phone calls. Because 13 minutes meant I could fit 4 in an hour and have 2 minutes to pee in between each one. And so I did 147 13-minute phone calls over about a month and a half. We did 1 million+ data points in surveys. And the question that we were trying to answer is, what is the biggest problem that personal trainers have? And what are their goals? And we were able to really dial down the biggest issue in the fitness, this back in 2012, we were able to really dial down the biggest problem that the fitness industry has into one sentence, which is all trainers a year or two into their career need to figure out a way to make more in a bit less time with a bit better schedule. That's literally it. If you can solve that problem on an individual, on a gym, then a lot of the nonsense in the industry actually goes away. A lot of the stuff that you see people doing where you're just like, how do their morals support that? It's like all of that goes away. The reason why that stuff happens is because people are pushed into a corner. The reason why there's the turnover that there is in the fitness industry is because you couldn't solve for that problem. And so once I knew the problem, I started looking at ways to build a solution. And I think it was answer 64 in one of the surveys. I just have it screenshotted, it was anonymous, but like I have it screenshotted. It was like number 64 was the first time anybody had ever mentioned online training to me. Right, again, this is 2012. And I was like, that seems interesting. So I thought about it a little bit more. So this is worth investigating. Like, it seems like it checks these boxes, right? Like, it doesn't mean you have to do it all the time. And so then we started asking our community, how much money do they need to make? Thinking that, everybody's going to say $100,000.
Yeah.
And overwhelmingly, the results came back $500 to $1,500 more a month would make a world of difference. And so in 2012, I built the first ever curriculum to teach people how to build an online training business. And I beta tested it with 24 people who I just brought in from our community. 22 completed it. And then from that, I iterated on it and turned it into the first ever course for teaching. And I called the course 1K Extra. This is how you make $1,000 extra as a trainer doing stuff you already know with tools you already have, right? And so you could see how that was like appealing. 1K Extra eventually evolved in 2016 after 6 iterations, a few thousand students, into the Online Trainer Academy. So at that point now we had over 40 people involved. We had 1,000+ students, probably 2,000+ students. I don't actually know the number before it evolved. 6 iterations. And evolved it and wrote the first ever textbook for online training, created the first ever certification for online training and evolved it into that. And since 2016 to now, it's in version 3.0. And I mean, we just keep doing that iteration cycle. We had the senior course developer from Yale University do an independent audit of the learning, and so on and so forth. But it all started with that single idea of, I don't know what's going to happen. I certainly didn't know the pandemic was going to happen.
Yep.
But if you are in this career for long enough, you know that there is going to be something that's going to happen, which will mean that you will not be able to train full-time in the gym every week, day in and day out.
Yep.
And you have to prepare yourself for it in advance. That's what resiliency is. Yeah. And the people who did are actually thriving.
Yes.
During the pandemic. I mean, our students are crushing it right now.
Yeah.
Because most of the industry was so slow moving that they were caught with their tail between their legs.
Yep. That's awesome. So, with what you've learned in through interactions and in course completion and what would you say the skills, and obviously you teach some of this, but what are the skills that are needed, from an online coach versus an in-person coach? And, because they're different, they're not the same, like you were saying. In some cases, you don't have to have this big personality to be the online coach, but on other instances, there's things and skills and interactions that you need to have to be able to be successful. But anything you could share with us there?
Well, are you looking from a training standpoint, from a coaching standpoint?
Yeah, from the actual trainer who, that is going to potentially adapt this, and then they take it on, and then, they write their programs and they expect their clients to do them. Obviously there's a different interaction. I say the best program doesn't mean anything if you can't get them to do it. So now you're not in front of them. So, what skills if there's a couple things that are super important that you saw through this and that you teach?
Yeah, for sure. It's actually a lot simpler. I mean, number one, obviously you've got to be pretty good at programming, because you've got to take a lateral and proactive approach to programming. You can't be as responsive as you'd be in the gym. So you have to anticipate what might happen with a person before it happens and actually laterally program or proactively program around that. For a coach who's been doing it for a while that understands their clients, you probably do this unconsciously.
Yeah.
Right?
An example, sorry to cut you out, an example that is, you write your program in the gym, and that piece of machine or that area is being used, you quickly pivot, but now you're not there. So how do they do something like that? Correct?
100%. That's one great example of, okay, well, that this person works out in a busy gym, or that this person works out in a gym at busy times or whatever, right? You could even get them to take pictures of their gym and look at what pieces of equipment are close to each other if you're doing supersets, drop sets, whatever. The other example of that are, certain populations are more privy to show or be predisposed for injuries, for just little nagging things. I mean, the example that I always give is, if you work with somebody who sits at a desk, a man or a woman, all the time, they're probably going to be internally rotated. You don't know, I mean, you can't do any kind of an accurate assessment to see how much space they have in their shoulder joint, but odds are pretty good that they're probably going to have a little bit of impingement in their shoulder. So are you going to program as exercise 2A, a bench press where you're locking them into a barbell for a 3-0-1-0 tempo for 4 sets with 75 seconds rest in between? Well, probably not. If you're in person, maybe, right? If you think that that's the optimal exercise, because they could say during the warm-up, oh, this looks a bit funky today, and you could do some facilitated stretching. You could try to work it out, or you could just say, okay, let's move on. But online, you don't have that advantage. So, okay, if you understand how templates work, well, that you can vary the exercise itself. You're probably not going to vary the movement pattern, but you can vary the implement, and you can often vary the grip or the stance, and still get much of the same, if not the same, training effect. So you could take that same client and you can move them from a pronated, locked into a barbell grip to a neutral grip dumbbell press. It's still going to be exercise 2A. It's still going to be 4 sets. It's still going to be whatever I said, a 4-0-1-0 tempo with 75. Those variables don't change.
Yep.
And so you would, and again, I mean, somebody who's experienced probably does this unconsciously. But what you see with inexperienced trainers going to online training is they run into a lot of issues with programming, because this stuff isn't second nature. They don't look at a client and they say, I don't know, and we'll talk about assessments in a second, I don't actually know if this is a problem or not. But there's a good chance that it will be. And I can sub this in. I can create this variation. I can progress or regress this exercise without losing any major training effect, and it's safer. So I'm going to go and do that. And that's something that I think everybody who's more experienced in training does. Or, to be honest, a lot of online trainers have programmers who work for them. A lot of people who've got bigger companies who do that kind of stuff.
You mentioned templates, and I think that's a big one too. Is, have you seen, obviously you create these program templates that, go into the system, and then, as opposed to, I think some people get so bogged down when they first start, they start creating workouts and they're just throwing workouts in there, and there's no system to it. And so now they're having to change so much and spend all this time on programming, where kind of what I'm hearing is you got to put some upfront time into the programming for the various different people, and then you tweak off of that.
Do you ever see, there's a meme, but it has a lot of truth to it. I think it's like Climbing Mount Stupid is the name of it. And it's basically like expertise and confidence. And it just shows it's like when you have very little expertise, you kind of go for a little bit and then your confidence just skyrockets. But as you get more expertise, your confidence starts to diminish.
It's funny. Yep.
Right. And so that's kind of what happens. I mean, almost every single really high quality, I mean, I'm talking like world-class trainer uses templates.
Yep.
And the reason is, and I could give you the logical reason for it. This is my logical reason. I'm not speaking for anybody else. And we use templates in our program. 100% we use templates in our program. Is if you're able to effectively group clients, which you almost always can. I mean, the reality of it is a 30 to 45-year-old guy who's looking to lose a little bit of weight and put on some muscle is probably going to have a pretty similar workout to another one.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's not that much variation. And so if through all of your studies, you build the best workout you could ever build, the best, whatever, 12-week periodized plan for that client in that group, by definition, building another workout from scratch is going to be the second best workout that you can build. So does it not make sense then logically to start everybody who fits into this group with the best workout, and then you individualize it?
Yep.
And this is where the tech becomes really interesting, because I'm of the opinion that algorithms, that computer systems can actually build better training programs than about 95% of personal trainers.
Yep.
And it's just because programming is a mastery profession. It is unbelievably hard to do it exceptionally well.
Yep.
It takes decades.
Yep.
And most trainers are nowhere close to that. But where trainers can come in, and where I think most trainers should come in, is actually come in at the end of the process. So you have a client come in, you identify which group they fit into, right? You have that template, which is an exceptional template for them. And then the trainer at the last minute before the client gets that actually looks at the intake, maybe speaks to the client, looks at their injury, their training history, their preferences, equipment availability is a big one right now, and then tweaks it. And you can actually automate a lot of this too. So what we're doing with our training program is the intake form is actually built. We actually built out an algorithm to select all of this. So you select how many days a week you can train. You select whether you're intermediate, advanced. You select whether you want hypertrophy, whether you want fat loss as your primary. I mean, objective, obviously you're going to have a little bit of both. You tell me what equipment you do not have access to. And then what the system can do then is the system picks a program based off of that, because you have, 3 days a week, fat loss, intermediate, home gym, right? Let's say. Okay, so you get program number 8. Then it says, what's all the equipment you don't have? Well, the system then can actually look at that and say, okay, well, they don't have this. And then we've programmed in, if they don't have this for exercise 2, next is that. If they don't have that, next is this. All of that work actually, I believe, should be done for the trainer before the trainer even enters in. And then the trainer comes in the last second and looks at injury history and looks at all of the other aspects of that intake.
Yep.
And then touches it. Like, to me, this is why I love not necessarily online training, but why I love tech and automation as a way to optimize training environments. I believe that coaches are more valuable than they ever have been. I believe that coaches are often not utilized fully because, simply put, they're doing way too many things that they shouldn't be doing that a computer can do better than them. Yep. And what's happening as a result of that is it means that they are showing up in much less capacity than they should be showing up the ways that they should be showing up. The same thing with communication on an ongoing basis. You should not have to remember to reach out to a client, right? A coach should be an online coach particularly should be really, really great at motivational interviewing.
Got it.
And, but they shouldn't need to be the one to remember to reach out. You should build automations into your coaching practice to touch base with your people appropriately throughout the week, throughout the month. And the only reason that you're touching base with them could be either community. You know, we organize our people into teams of 5 to have that community, or to allow people to just put up their hand and say, I need help. And then the coach shows up in earnest. You know, a simple traffic light Tuesday. What are you, a red, yellow, green?
I'm sorry?
I'm a red. We just have like one of the messages we send out to people.
Yeah.
Every Tuesday. What traffic light are you? A red, yellow, or green?
Yeah, okay.
And then, you know, we say what each one means.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a red. Well, like, you bet your butt the coach reaches out to that person. But if somebody says they're green and they say they're doing well, well, then the coach doesn't need to be with that person that week. They're doing well, right? Which means they can be there more for the people who need help. That's how you scale coaching. That's how you show up where you need to.
Yeah.
Well, you do that on a programming, on a communication side.
Yeah. A couple of things I want to, talk to the crew, because again, I think so many trainers take things so personal and then they misinterpret as well. When we talk about programming, I would say, I know that you followed and, learned from the late Charles Poliquin. And, that's where I always go back to. I said, if you think you know everything there is to know about program design, go take his class. He's got 22 principles on just manipulating repetitions, and then another on sets, and let alone the art of taking them all and manipulating them together. So, hopefully people understand that there is a huge science to this, and the people that go down that road, and sometimes the people that go way deep down that road, then like you said, they don't have the personality. And so now they have the best program, but they can't keep a client.
So, I mean, first off, yeah, Coach Poliquin was a legend. I was with him 2 weeks before he passed.
Oh, wow.
I actually have some of perhaps the final books that he ever signed, definitely some of. He literally signed books to send to me in the mail and passed away before they arrived.
Oh, man.
So yeah, no, I was really getting to know him well before he passed, which is really sad. The head program architect for our coaching program is Joe Dowdell. He's a Poliquin 5.
Got it.
And just to give you an idea of how much goes into these programs, he spent 60 hours building 16 programs.
60 hours to build 16 programs, You said? Wow.
Yeah. And that was rushing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what goes into it, right? Like it is there's everybody who joins our coaching program gets basically like a manual that he put together on programming. Yeah. And I mean, there are 13 variables, right, that you can manipulate every which way. But it's like a giant puzzle. I mean, if you manipulate one, what's the waterfall effects? You want an optimum training effect, right? And it's really neat. So I'm a client in the program too, because I was like,
that's awesome.
Heck yeah, this is like the best training system ever put together that we've put together. Heck yeah, I'm going to be a client for it. And it's incredible to go through it and just see. I mean, little things like unless you really you wouldn't appreciate it. Yeah. The average Joe or Jane would not appreciate it. Yeah. But I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh God, that's smart. Oh man, like this movement prep, how today's movement prep is different from Wednesday's movement prep based off of the program. Yeah. Even flipping exercises A and B, right? So one day it'll be AB, the second day it'll be BA. Yeah. The same program. The difference that makes on how you progress and grow and just like micro progress.
Yep. Love that.
Throughout that it's fascinating. Yeah. But you would never get it if you didn't know, right? Like you got to be at a certain level to like really kind of appreciate that and be a bit of a dork. Yeah. But yeah, man. So those are like the main ones. You asked with online, like what is different. The only other thing that I'll hit on really quick is assessments. There's there's more than this. Like I wrote a 380-page textbook on online coaching. Like there's more than what I'm telling you.
For sure. Yeah.
But this idea of assessments, and in the gym, a lot of the time, and I could make a very good argument of why this is actually backwards and isn't even true, but validity is favored in assessments. Like you think and I'm saying you think because you probably aren't, but you think that you're doing valid assessments when you tell a client what his or her body fat is, when you tell a client that their glutes aren't firing or whatever. It's like, first of all, you're probably wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Certainly not 100%.
Oh, no, hair goats aren't firing. Like, how do you know that?
How do you know that? Oh, you have an impingement in your shoulder. You don't know that, right? Like, and I mean, I joke about this because I did all of these things, like every single one of them. I was like, oh, your glutes aren't firing. We need to do. It's like, I don't know if your glute. What does that even mean?
The ones I love too. It's not even the good. It's your your rotator. You're the one muscle of your rotator cuff, or like some like. I'm like, really?
And like body fat is the funniest. I mean, unless you have access to like DEXA or bod pod or underwater weighing, or you've done like thousands of caliper assessments.
Yeah.
But most gyms use bioelectrical impedance.
Yeah.
Right. Which are, body fat scales and whatever it is. The science behind, even no matter how good the machine is, the entire science behind bioelectrical impedance is flawed. Like you have no clue. There's a 3 to 5% margin of error from day to day on the same machine. It's just not. So anyway, I can make a very strong argument that in almost no cases in gyms is the assessment in any way valid. But it still favors that when you are doing remote assessments with clients, you accept, my philosophy is you accept that you cannot be valid. And so what you do is you choose assessments and testing protocols that favor reliability over validity. And you kind of flip that way. And you also favor stuff that's easy to do for a client at home, like tape measure stuff is great, right? Even stepping on a scale. As long as you use one of those apps that smooth it out because there's the day-to-day variation so the clients don't go crazy. But you choose these assessments that are valid that anybody can do. We have a lot of coaches that we work with that actually, when their clients sign up, they send them a tape measure in the mail. Yeah. And so you look even like 1 mile runs, 12-minute runs. I love even like old school gym tests, man, like 60-second push-up test. Yeah. Like, I don't actually know whether you're like getting stronger, but I know that you're getting better.
Yeah. That's the progress.
And it definitely feels good for you.
Going.
Yeah. And so you've got to, as you choose your assessments, you have to kind of accept that what you're choosing is not going to be valid. But the way that I communicate that to people, this was a funny talk that I gave at the ACSM, myself and one other guy in 58 PhDs presenting at that conference. And it was a funny talk basically saying that assessments aren't valid in the gym. and why we just need to give up on that hope. Yeah. But anyway, those are the major changes.
Got it. And you may have hit on this. Is there anything else that, like with regards to mistakes, we said these are the things you definitely have to do, but any top mistakes that you've seen people make that you can help people?
The biggest mistake that people make is just setting ridiculous precedents for support.
Okay.
And no client needs to speak to you for 30 minutes every week.
Yeah.
It just doesn't need to be done. There are just better ways. And so
you think people do that because they're so used to the one-on-one interaction that they get that information? So it's almost like the trainer versus.
I don't think that that's why. I think a lot of trainers do this because they see other people doing it and they think that those other people, if they're doing it or if they have it on the website, they must be doing well. If you've seen behind the scenes as much as I had, you realize that a lot of the time people who seem like they're doing well aren't. Or are so unbelievably burnt out that they don't even know which way is up because they just haven't built intelligent systems. It feels like you're providing a better service to the client if you promise them more, if you promise them more of you. And so the knee-jerk reaction is to offer more of you, allowing yourself to justify your price point. A lot of trainers are very uncomfortable talking about money, talking about price. And so what they do is in order to make themselves more comfortable, they make up a story in their own mind that if they're offering more of themselves, then it's worth it.
Yeah.
Whereas what they don't understand is that, it's amazing how much the stories we make up in our mind. We make all these deals with like other people without other people knowing about the deals. It's like you do a favor for somebody and then you're upset that they don't do a favor for you. It's like, well, that was never
Yeah.
That was never communicated. That's something in your own head, right? Like if you want to do a favor for somebody, you do it for them. You don't expect them to reciprocate when there's never been a contract of reciprocation.
Yeah.
And so it's the same kind of thing. We kind of make up these stories in our mind that we think that other people understand without communicating them. And it's very common. And because a lot of people, myself included, have a hard time speaking about money, and being comfortable accepting money, and particularly a lot of money for what they do, because fit pros are so unbelievably passionate and selfless that it's hard for them. They make up the story that they have to show, or that they have to give more of themselves. Whereas what a client's really buying is the result. They actually don't really care most of the time what's involved in getting that result.
And it's so hard to get some trainers to believe that. It's like the solution isn't it's the what's the solution going to give them and allow them to be and do.
Who cares how they get it? And in fact, if you understand basic consumerism, like if people have a pain, if people have a problem that is big enough for them to pay to make it go away, they want to make that pain go away as easily and as quickly as possible. They don't want to do more work. They don't want to talk to you more. Like what we found is that actually offering more in your programs can be a deterrent to people buying.
Yeah. That's great.
Because they just don't want it. Like they just don't want to do it. Like, I mean, we think that we want to talk about, everybody wants to talk about fitness and health all day. Yeah. I got news for you. Like most of the people you're selling to don't.
Yeah. One of the things that, going through your Online Trainer Academy course and just unexpected. And I know you've talked about this and you talk about it in the course, I believe, or I've heard it somewhere else, just the service, like, all of a sudden, we sign up for the course, we got the amazing book, but then there was this beautiful water bottle and just little things that I think put the bigger touch on what you've done with your community. And I think that's another big thing where it doesn't have to be some elaborate, very expensive thing, but just something
in fact, it's better if it isn't.
Yeah.
And it's better if it isn't.
To them.
Yeah. I always look for ways in everything that I do to get disproportionately large positive benefits in response to time and money invested. Mm-hmm. And what I love is customer journey mapping. There are 19 touch points from when somebody signs up for online trainer coaching to when they get their program.
Oh, wow.
Okay. What are the most unremarkable elements of that process? When they get their receipt, when they get their welcome email, when you have to communicate when they're going to get their program.
Yeah.
How can you, the biggest opportunity to be remarkable is in the most boring, unremarkable places.
Love that.
And so how can you step up? And the barrier to make a difference is so low because basically nobody does this, that it's actually really easy to do. Yeah, inflict the littlest bit of personality. When we send people a letter in the mail, like I use custom stamps with my idiotic face on it. Like we've got like 5 or 6 different versions of John Goodman stamps. And it's gotten to the point now where we've done this for a few years. There are people literally, this is the stupidest thing ever, whose kids collect John Goodman stamps in their stamp album. I mean, is that not the dumbest thing? But think about like just, you're getting a letter in the mail from a company you have done business with. Yeah. Maybe that letter is, sending them stickers in the mail. Maybe it's a promotional letter or whatever it is. It costs me, I don't know, say 50 cents to send it with a stamp. It'll cost me 53 cents to send that with a custom stamp.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So like, what is that difference, man?
Yeah.
And then the other part of it, maximizing those touch points for sure. The other part of it is understanding motivation. Whenever anybody starts a program, to really know exactly where these spots are in yours, you've got to do a whole bunch of deep analysis. But there's a couple common threads of like motivation wanes. Basically, when somebody buys, there's a lot of buyer's remorse after the sale. You need to make sure they know exactly where to go if they have questions. You need to control for any problems as much as possible right off the bat. Yeah. You need to congratulate them for taking action and doing something risky. Like Like the most important thing with customer journey mapping is not knowing where a person is at every stage in the process, but knowing where a person is emotionally.
Yeah.
And then meeting them there.
Love that.
And then moving them through that. And so, when somebody buys something, particularly on the internet, they're probably worried that they are getting scammed. They might be concerned that family or friends are not going to be supportive of them and are maybe laughing at them or whatever it is, right? And so you got to meet them emotionally there, right, in order to bring them to the next level. And then 2 to 3 weeks in, any fitness program, any education program, is call it the valley of despair.
Yeah.
Everybody feels like, okay, I was really excited about this. I did an investment. I took a risk. I was working at it, and I haven't gotten results yet, because you don't get any results in anything worth getting results in 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm putting in this work. And so we arrange for these notepads, which you've gotten, to arrive at people's houses physically about 3 weeks after they purchase.
Oh, nice.
We can't time it exactly, because we know that that's going to be a time when people are going to be falling off. And this is kind of like a make or break. And so we let that arrive around that time to help them through. And it's specifically designed to basically keep them with it. And it's also physical so that they look at it. And then the final is, and this is where you actually need to do a lot of analysis, and this is harder for people, but every program, every software, everything has what's called an activation point, whereby it's commonly documented that if somebody basically gets past this point, odds that they're going to become a longtime user, or odds that they're going to be, that they're going to succeed in this thing, go way up.
Yeah.
So personal trainers, it's 5 clients. Once a personal trainer gets 5 clients in a gym, the average lifetime of that personal trainer goes from about 8 months to 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Software companies, it's the same thing. Like once a trainer gets 5 clients, I might have these numbers a little bit wrong, but I think Facebook is 8 friends. Twitter is 7 followers. And so these companies know these things, right? And they will bug you to no end to get to that point. Yeah. And then they'll back off.
Yeah.
So we know that our activation point is completion of module 1. If you look at our data, if somebody completes module 1 of the Online Trainer Academy, 75% of them are going to finish the course.
Nice.
If they don't complete module 1, or if they take too long to complete module 1, they're basically gone.
Got it. Wow.
So we've built automations, and we have our coaches making sure to the best of our ability that people get through that.
That's awesome.
Right.
That's awesome detail. So, why don't you just, before we kind of end this, and I really appreciate your time, is just kind of you've got your, it's a newer book that I see being promoted quite a bit, or I don't know if it's a newer book, but it's just being promoted, and I see John helping you promote that one. What is that book, and how could they get that?
Oh, I don't know. I think you're talking
It's the red one. It's Online Trainer.
Yeah. You're talking about the online training one?
Yes.
This is actually not the newest book. There actually is a newer book than this.
Okay.
But this is the one that we're promoting the most. Yeah. I mean, if you just go to, I don't even know what the best link is, theptdc.com/free-book, you'll get it. But I mean, you can get it on Amazon and anything as well. But yeah, no, this is basically like our primer, call it. This will give you enough to kind of know how to tackle online training. You'll understand some of the misconceptions. You'll have a better appreciation of what some of the options are, because there's no right or wrong way to run an online training business. The way that we teach people in the Online Trainer Academy is to kind of craft their own business model, and we guide them to that, because depending on what you want to achieve, depending on how much time you have, depending on what you want to offer and what your ambitions and goals are, your business will look entirely different from somebody else's, and neither is better or worse. And so the goal is not to say, do this thing, it's better. The goal is to say, okay, well, what's best for you right now? Mm-hmm. Understand the options.
Got it. And then from there, you've got the Online Trading Academy certification course. Would you mind just telling everybody a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, go to onlinetrainer.com/academy and enroll. It's the best way to find out, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
what do they expect in that?
What do they expect? I mean, soup to nuts, how to build an online training business for nutrition coaches, gym owners, fitness coaches, either as a side thing. I mean, we championed the hybrid model back in 2012, 2013. largely credited with designing it in the first place. So a lot of our students do hybrid where they train in person with leveraging online tools.
Yeah.
And then other people build an online training business where they travel the world with it, right? And I mean, everything from how to think, like the theory of how you need to think. I don't think that there are set amounts of money or any, I don't think that that's that important. I think what's important is understanding money, understanding happiness, understanding fulfillment, and where you fit in that paradigm, and then building your business around it, kind of working backwards. And so the first module really works through that with you.
Yeah.
The second module is all your business structure. So everything from pricing, package structure, legalities, all of that. Yeah. Third module is how to take care of your clients. So how to actually offer an exemplary service online. And then module 4, of course, is marketing, getting clients, retention, testimonials, referrals. And then we've got what we call a skills module, which is not part of the core curriculum, but that's basically bonus stuff to help you up level your skills if you need to. Yeah. So we've got really great training on sales copy, on pricing theory.
And that's all included within the program.
That's all included within it, on building your operations documents, your SOPs, so that you can actually begin to grow a team, how to structure all of that, how to build all that out.
Wow, that's fantastic. Awesome. Well, my last question is, we mentioned Charles, and, I was fortunate enough early on to get introduced to the Paul Checks of the world when, he was one of the big ones, and the Tom Purvises and Greg Roscoffs and all these. And I think I don't know if it's just me and I'm getting older and I don't know who these people are anymore, but, but they're so strong, but yet so many people still don't know. But, who would you say, who were the 1 or 2 influences that's helped you most in your career?
That's a good question, man. I mean, I think, John Brody is definitely one of them. He's become such a good friend. Yeah. And he lives reasonably close by. We've spent a lot of time together. Yeah. His company, Precision Nutrition, is similar to mine in a lot of ways, but a few years ahead. Yeah. So it's, he was able to give me a really great behind the scenes throughout the entire 2-year process of them preparing their company for sale and then selling.
Yeah.
And being able to see that, being able to really talk to him hours on end about the negotiation process, about the valuation process, those types of things, it's just stuff that you just don't hear about that much. From a training standpoint, I mean, I don't even know, Charles later on for sure in my career, but definitely not earlier. Yeah. Earlier, I was actually a guy who read a lot of research, didn't follow people so much. I'm kind of embarrassed to say that I didn't do the amount of continuing education that I probably should have, but I read a lot of research very early on. I would get like people's PubMed account that were still in medical school and just read all of the research. When BCAAs were all the rage, I was reading all the research on that. Satellite cell optimization, mTOR, rapamycin, P13K systems. I was reading all about that and maximizing that. And so
I remember I graduated college in 97 and I had to do a final report, and I did it on creatine. And I wrote the report, and this is, again, it was 97. And I remember the exercise phys teacher telling me, I'm going to give you a grade on this, but I think everything you said in there was absolute bullshit. I don't think that stuff works at all. I don't know if I was.
Interesting.
But yet it's probably one of the most
fortunate
supplements ever.
Well, and also the most well-researched supplement.
Yeah, exactly.
And like the most like beneficial and harmless. So a lot of, it's weird where I went to University of Western Ontario in Western Ontario. There's Western, there's McMaster, and there's a few schools within like a few hours for some reason in this pocket of Canada that did a lot of the leading research into protein supplementation, creatine. And so the school that I went to, Dr. Peter Lemon, who was Dr. Brody's PhD advisor and a number of other people that you'll recognize, he was doing a lot of the leading research in creatine at the time when I was in university. And I actually sent him an email when I was a personal trainer and just said, hey, I wasn't in any of his classes, but I said, I'd love to be involved in some of your studies. And he said, come to my office, we'll talk. And he took 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
And walked me through all of the research that they were doing. And the funniest thing was, I actually wrote the story for Brody's book, for Changemaker. And I told this story and JB didn't even know it. And And he actually was walking me through JB's PhD dissertation at the time.
Oh, wow.
Because he was going through it. So it's like a really funny connection.
Yeah.
But I was able to get that like on the ground. I mean, I worked at the gym, and all of the it was all guys. So I'll say all the guys at that time. All the guys who were doing all of the research in nutrition, in workout, in working out, and muscle building, were all, of course, going to the gym all the time. And they all worked out from like 11 to 12 at night. And I always kept the gym open for them late, and they let me be a fly on the wall.
Oh, wow.
And so for the 3 years that I was working at the gym, I was studying kinesiology at school. I was working at the gym 25 hours a week. I was working out myself. And then I was like 5 to 7 hours a week at the beginning being a fly on the wall of these conversations. And then whatever they were talking about, I'd go home and pick up the research and read it. And then I'd start taking part in the conversations. And this was like really, because McMaster was Dr. Stuart Phillips, who was all the protein supplementation, muscle building. And McMaster is also Dr. Stu McGill. So it was all the low back stuff. Yep. All of that happened within like an hour and a half of each other. Whew. And I happened to find myself, luckily, just like basically being there listening to these PhD students awesome? Like talk about all the research they were doing at this time, which is super cool.
And I think that goes back to what you'd said is, you know, the more you realize, you know, the less confident sometimes you become, right? Because you're always looking at, I had an awesome experience in Chicago one time where I got lucky and Vladimir Yanda, right before he passed away, came, one of his understudies worked at DePaul University, and there were 6 of us sitting in a room listening to Yanda, and he died about a year later. And it was just such an awesome experience. And him talk about, you know, the subsystem, sling systems and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. It's just funny when you find yourself like Brett Contreras, you know, the glute guy who now is pretty internet famous. But the first time I met him, we were in Kansas City for an event, and we sat in the hotel lobby until 4:00 in the morning.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he basically sat with a notepad and was just talking to me about everything. And Alan Aragon fell asleep on the couch beside us. But you know, you just can't like these are the types of things that are just serendipitous, but when they happen, you're just like, I'm just not going to sleep tonight.
Yeah.
You know, like this is why you go to events. This is why you go to higher level education. I mean, to find yourself in these types of situations.
That's great.
And you got to just go with it.
Yeah. Well, man, I can't thank you enough. I think, you know, the knowledge and the insight that you've provided is just phenomenal. And I love what you're doing. I envy the hell out of you and love watching you all over the world and all these crazy places. I want to get to Maldives. Have you been to Maldives?
I have not.
No. Yeah. I want to get up to those.
I have not. It's high up. It's high up on my wife's list.
Yes.
It's so far away and out of their way.
Yeah.
We kind of, you know, my son is 3 and we spent a lot of time abroad with him. I mean, he's been on 31 flights now. Oh, wow. And he's 3 years old. And, but we did the last like Asian trip. Yeah. We did do Europe last year, but we did the last Asian trip when she was actually pregnant. So we lived in Hawaii, we lived in Thailand, we visited Japan all throughout her pregnancy, and actually did like checkups in all those places.
Yeah.
We didn't do any in Japan. We did checkups in Thailand. We did checkups in Hawaii. And that was kind of like, we're pretty sure we're not going to get to this part of the world for a while. You know, we're gonna go now.
That's awesome. Well, man, thanks again. I really appreciate your time and look forward to, you know, engaging with you a little bit more in the future, man. Thank you so much.
You got it, man. Thank you.